So a riding horse. The arms are up and out front so that you can just adjust the sacrum. So the sacrum needs to come forwards a little bit to stop the heavy arms pulling you forwards. So our correct posture is the one that we would have if we were interacting with another person. If you're pushing hands, say, your arms are out front. So then it's important to get this in the right place. If you're just on your own with arms hanging down, correct posture is more difficult. To connect with another person, the first thing you have to do, according to Yung Cheng Fu, is hollow the chest. So you open up in order to allow something to come in. You don't open up in order to bring something out. So it's not this sort of opening that's bearing your chest and pushing your chest forwards. You're drawing this in and emptying. So there's a sense that whatever was in your chest has drawn in and sunk down. And then that just makes space for the other person. So you feel it here, you feel it in the heart area, because that's the area that's to do with feelings and connections. But technically, it's these places here beneath the collarbones. So this one and this one to do with the two arms, but also here. So these are the places that are difficult to feel that we need to really work on. So the hollowing here enables you to draw the person towards you. So when you yield, you're not just getting out of the way of the other person, you're actually drawing them in to like a vacuum, to like an empty space. And these are just the places where we yield to the ground. These are the places where we yield to the other person. Get a long step, and now just moving from leg to leg, but with this sense of hollow, like you're hollowing here. I'm stretching it just the way we normally work, but just the mind slightly different. So my knee goes out, that stretches this open and draws me across. I want to feel my movement almost torn out of me. Something opens and, oh, my body is pulled slowly. The opening here, which is the knee going out, but also something breaking inside me to allow this connection, is turning me this way. This is what I want to feel. The important thing is to stay in this leg as long as you can. And that's the principle throughout the postures, really. The weight moves last of all. First of all, there's the opening. The knee goes out, the body turns, and finally, the body is pulled into the foot. Yielding is the Madonna. Yielding is you opening up and creating this encircling, loving space for the world to come in and nestle. And so it has to feel like that. Feel it here in the groin. The space has to open up and hollow out. The hips are difficult. So to get this hollowing properly, I have to be able to feel as though I'm letting go of my sacroiliacs, the same way that my shoulder blades can come apart to do a big ward off. I want the feeling that I can release here, this side of my sacrum can release. And then I get the sense of this wing of energy that's come out of that joint, has reached down and enveloped both my foot and the other person's foot. So it's like my lower body is yielding to their lower body, my upper body to their upper body. I have to release across the sacrum, otherwise these wings won't come out. And now the same thing, but just more with the arms, just the two circles. So I'm reaching forwards here. I just want to feel this feeling of turning back, but the arm sort of staying behind. So my arm goes forwards and then I turn back and this stretches open because the arm is still moving in that direction. But in order for it to stretch open, something in me again has to let go. So something in me has to allow my scapula, my shoulder blade to come away from the spine and just move like this. And again, it's the wing. You're releasing that wing of energy from your shoulder. What we want to do is do it with feeling rather than simply mechanically. So I'm turning here, not to get out of the way of the other person, but to make a space for them to come into. Feel the middle fingers. So when I turn here, the hand turns over to face up and my hand rotates around the middle finger. The middle fingers become very important. Traditionally in Chinese medicine, there wasn't a heart organ, so there wasn't a heart meridian. They had to sort of put one in later. So the heart was the pericardium, the heart protector. So that's the middle finger. That's where the meridian goes. Feel that direct line between the middle finger and your heart, the middle of your body. Feel the two sets of wings. So the wings of the arms from your shoulder blades, which are active here, but also the wings of the legs from the sacrum. What we would like is for it to feel as though the space between them has just collapsed to nothing. So it's just one thing, really. From here down to here, it's just compressed into one thing. You're no longer a heart and a belly. They've joined together. This is one of John's big things. So for that, the curvature in the lower spines, the lordosis, really needs to flatten out, and the sacrum really has to relax, because it's the tightness in this region, in my lower back, that squeezes everything up into my chest. So my legs have to be really strong, and I just have to disappear inside it. So there's a sense of almost going into a daydream. You're just sinking into your dantian, and your heart is then just becomes like the top of the dantian. You're just this one organ here with the dantian at the bottom and the heart at the top, and it's just one thing. In order to join the heart and the belly, you have to be so peaceful inside. It's one of those things that sort of comes and goes. Sometimes you can get it, sometimes you can't. And then the head is just like the periscope that's come up from the submarine just to collect information. But all the controls, all the people are inside the submarine, and the submarine is in an environment, this water, that's completely different than what the periscope is picking up, because the periscope comes up into the air and can then pick out images of land and things. So there's this sense of just you're immersed in this liquid. It's like the air becomes so thick, it's just difficult to move through it. And everything's got this sort of slow, continuous, dreamy quality. It's difficult. So this arm goes out. This point of me turning back, which is what starts the circle coming around like this, that's what I really want to sort of just feel, because it's really difficult. That point here of just pulling back, it is like something inside you breaks. It's like, oh, almost like you start crying. So it's really emotional and tender. But it's necessary, because without that, there's no real softness. Softness isn't something that you are. Softness is an aspect of the relationships that you have. So you're willing to just break, take yourself, empty yourself out of the situation and give the other pride of place. And the wonderful thing about yielding is that it's you're presenting the other person with softness, and that itself is a softening act. So yielding actually softens the other person. Into riding horse. Just feel the weight of the arms necessitating an adjustment in the sacrum. Now let's just try some Qigong. It doesn't really matter where you have your feet. Let the legs be a little bit bent. Bent at the knees, but also bent here in the hip. So a sense that I'm going to sit down, I'm going to send my bum back in order to find the chair. So that's the feeling of bent legs. Most people, when they bend the legs, they simply bend the knees, and then this just stays locked. So the more they bend the knees, the more they will lean back. We want to feel that we're sitting down all the time, so I can bend here as much as I can bend in the knees. And then just bringing the arms up, in, up over the head, and then down. Energy. So I have to do something with my mind in order to make this movement happen. So something in my mind brightens up. I sort of cheer up. Things are looking up and my arms come up in sympathy. And then here, something in me gets a little bit sad, and that draws the hands together. So my spine is bowing now. And then here, I almost get angry in order to bring the arms up over my head. And then I just relax and just feel those emotions as I reverse through them, as the energy descends. So here I'm sort of smiling at the world, I'm opening, lifting. Then here I'm beginning to bring something in, and then I'm beginning to close down. And then here I bare my chest, I really lift the heart, and then so what makes it energy work is not what you're doing with your body, but what you're doing with your mind. If it's just the body, then you're just doing physical exercise, and there won't be much energy. Breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, and breathing out. And now let's just bring it back to riding horse a sec. So when John used to teach the short form, he'd give a talk at the beginning of the first lesson, introducing everyone to Tai Chi. And then at the end of the first lesson, he would come in and give another little talk. And that one was all about the importance of practice. He would just stress that you're not going to be able to remember the form unless you do a little bit every day. Now, at the end of the first term, at the end of the first 10 weeks of this 30-week course, the next week, people needed to pay more money. They needed to pay for the second term. So a lot of people wouldn't return. So John would always make a point of coming in at the end of that last lesson of the first term, really to say goodbye to those that wouldn't return, and just to give some words of wisdom. And what he would talk about was what he thought of as the three most important principles: faith, sincerity, and courage. So we talk a little bit about each one and say basically to do well at anything, you need those three qualities. And in a way, sincerity is the quiet mind. It's just your ability to just be true and honest. So to give the action, give what it is that you're doing in the here and now, your full attention. Exactly like if you're at the movie house watching a really exciting movie, you wouldn't be thinking about what you're going to be having for your dinner when you get home. You'd be so engrossed and so excited. So that's the level of attention that we need to bring to the work. And when you do, it becomes emotional. It becomes a site of real feeling. And now let's just try the other one. The first one, we go out like this, in, above the head, and then down. And now just the other way, really. So now just bringing the arms up in front of you, and then bringing the arms out to the side, and then up over the head and down. So on this one, the breathing is quite different. With the first three actions, the arms coming up and out, you breathe in each time. So you need to just control it. So you just breathe in a little bit. So you breathe in a little bit here, stop, and then breathe in a little bit more, stop, and then breathe in a little bit more, and then slowly breathe out. You go through the dantians. So for the first one, the arms coming up, you have your mind in the belly. And then here, the mind in the heart. And then here, you pull the mind up into the middle of the head. And slowly, the energy just passes down through those points and into the ground. So breathing into the belly, breathing into the heart, and then tip of the tongue on the roof of the mouth and just breathing in as though into that point. And slowly the energy passes down. Again, as though you're in water. So you can't do this quickly. Feel it. To bring the arms up. It's like reaching out towards the other person. There's a certain feeling to that. There's an emotion. And then here, it's like you're exposing yourself. You're sort of pulling something open and just showing them your bleeding heart. And then, oh, now this is reaching up to the sky. Like with each one, I have to intensify. So this one, I really have to get fierce because it's really difficult to lift the arms up here. Feel as though they're almost behind you, and it really opens the shoulder. Now, let's figure about around the feet. So we've done the two circles. So when we do the two circles, the hands are separate. They're doing their own things, if you like. Now, both hands are with the same loop. Feel these points. So as I come round here, it's as though the middle finger is going to go into this point, and then it would come out of the sacroiliac. So we're working on the hollowing again, just a bit more explicitly now. So the finger goes in, but what do I have to do here to actually suck this middle finger into that point? So that's what I'm trying to feel. This is what we're looking at all the time. How would I need to feel to make what needs to happen inevitably and naturally? And I find, working like this, it does require meditation first. So when I meditate at night, I generally do 2 hours, and then the Tai Chi I do after that is just better than anything I've done before. So one of the most important anecdotes from our Tai Chi, that story of John asking Dr. Chi what he should practice when he returns to London. And Dr. Chi's beautifully measured response, I suggest you practice spirit. So this is practicing spirit. When you're feeling and you're weeping inside, then it's just pure spirit. Spirit is not aggressive. It's really soft. And when you work with it, you just feel soulful. You know, you're willing to suffer for the other. And it's just the mother or the father. So any animal that needs to look after its young until they're old enough to fend for themselves has these emotions all the time. That's what their life is built on. And now let's bring it up to the shoulders. So just doing the same thing, but a little bit higher. And now I'm thinking of my middle finger going into this point beneath my collarbone, passing out of the shoulder blade, where it becomes the wing, and the wing takes the arm. And then let's try a little bit in the head. Just a small one, really. So you're thinking of going into these points, the inside corners of the eyes. You can think of that as the entry point, and then these points here as the exit point. Feel that point of entry. The figure of eight, it comes in, but it almost goes back on itself before it then slips round. So the figure of eight isn't just doing this, it's sort of coming in and then it loops like this. So it's got this blip in the middle. And then when we make a meal of that flip in the middle, then effectively we make 2 figures of 8s. So let's go into that now. So instead of this hand just passing through and joining in with this one, it slips back as though behind me. I mean, it is behind me. So this becomes really important. The bottom of the figure of 8, you can think of it as your unconscious, the dark side. So I'm slipping into the darkness here, dredging something up. I'm sandwiched between what I can see, which is sort of here, and what I can't see, which is the rest, which is behind me. But it's also what's beneath me and what's above me. So everywhere I can't see, we just want to feel the vision almost becoming tunneled, almost like it's focusing in, and it's just becoming really blurred. So rather than trying to expand our range of vision, we're closing it down. So we're very good at operating within the known world. You know, we know how to navigate our environment, partly because our environment is so tame nowadays. But this internal work is really just teaching you to trust enough to be able to navigate the unseen world without wanting to make it known. It's a negative capability. Everything we do is negative. It's all to do with reduction, subtraction, emptying, making do with less. And given that we're all very indulgent consumers nowadays, it's an ethical life as well. These figures of 8s, they're not happening so much in front of you. They're sort of wrapping around you. This is the feeling we want, like we're binding the spine. swathing the spine in these sheets of rubber. Got a stretchiness to it, but you have to work. I like to be able to reach right up to the back heart with the hand that's behind you. Okay. So when we start working, we're relaxing, sink and relax, trying to just let go of all the worries. So the work starts off by helping you relax, but then once you're relaxed, it ends up making you tense, but tense in the right way. The sense that you've just tightened up, you've got rid of all of the sloppy slack from the system, and you've just become toned and very responsive. So this is something that meditation doesn't really give you. This is why we need some physical work. So it hasn't just tightened up your body, it's tightened up your mind. You know, you've become the killer. So it's the two extremes, really, you know, from the Madonna to the warrior to the killer, the assassin, and everything in between. And then let's bring it up. Just a little bit of this is so different. You have to do it just for a minute or so just to believe it. So the knees are light, and also the figure of 8 within the foot. So the 2 figures of 8s within the feet. Turning, getting a real sort of sense of wobble in the hips. But this area becomes very free. And then just let it settle. But it's always there. So the knees are never locked. There's always a sense of you moving between the front of the foot and the back of the foot. This is always ready, and particularly the turning, but those very subtle turns.